Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment down below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. Today's tutorial is a fun cutout top I've been wanting to make for a few weeks. It's got all the things: texture, movement, and a flirty cutout that draws the eye. Speaking of, if you're interested in eye-popping makes, sure to get a double take, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of crochet tutorials and patterns with even more dropping twice weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to get on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 100 grams of yarn. That's 185 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling us how long is your ideal nap. Now for me, the ideal nap doesn't have a time frame. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 4 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows: chain, slip stitch, single crochet, half double crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small. You can adjust it for your size, and we explain how to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook and start by making an odd number chain that starts at mid-chest all the way over to mid-underarm. Now I need roughly 6 inches or 15 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making a chain 23. Now that we have our chain, we're all going to get started on our first row, which is a Suzette stitch row. Block off that last chain and do a chain 1. That chain 1 doesn't count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, insert with 1 single crochet, and into the same stitch 1 double crochet. So into that chain, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, that is our single crochet, and into that same stitch with a double. So yarn over, into that same chain, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. That is our first Suzette stitch set. Now, every time we finish a Suzette stitch set, we are always going to skip that following stitch because that double crochet actually counts as that stitch. If we do work into there, we will accidentally be increasing. So what we're going to do is skip that following stitch and into the next with another single, and into that same stitch with a double crochet. That's it. From here, we're going to continue to skip that following stitch and into the next with a single and same stitch with a double until we all have 2 chains left. We've made our way down with our Suzette stitch row, leaving the last 2 chains. Now to close off this row is just going to be 1 half double crochet, so yarn over. We're going to skip that following stitch and into the next, which should be our last, insert with 1 half double crochet. Now everyone's row 1 is complete, and we should all have the same amount of stitches as chains that we made. Now we're going to get started on a row 2, so chain 2 and flip. Now what we're going to do is decrease on both ends. So how we're going to start our decrease row is 2 decrease of 2 half doubles. So yarn over. Into that first stitch, we're going to insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through. When we have these 4 loops on our hook, yarn over and pull through all 4. A second decrease right next to it. So yarn over, into that next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4. Then once we have those 2 decreases next to each other, into that following stitch, we're going to do our Suzette stitch, making our way all the way down. So just as a really quick tip, each of our Suzette stitch sets will be worked into our previous row's single crochet. Now we can tell that this following stitch is a single crochet because it's a little bit shorter than the next stitch. So just into that following, insert with a single and a double. Again, skip a stitch into the next with a single and a double, and continue on with our same Suzette stitches till we have 4 stitches left. So we've made our way down with our row 2. We should all have a total of 4 stitches left. Now we're going to close off this row with a decrease of 3 double crochets. So yarn over, we're going to skip that following stitch, Into that next, which is our third to last, we're going to pull through. Into that next, which is our second to last, pull through, and into that next, which is our last, pull through for a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 loops on our hook. Then from here, all we're going to do is yarn over, pull through the first 4 loops, then yarn over, pull through 2. Now everyone's row 2 is complete. We should all have 4 less stitches than our previous row, and we do all want to make sure that we're inserting a stitch marker into the beginning of this row, just so we know that this is where the outside of the cup is going to be. Now we are going to decrease at the end of our following row, so we're going to chain 1 and flip. Start by inserting your hook into that first stitch with our first Suzette stitch set, which is a single and a double. Skip a stitch into the next with a single and a double, and continue this till we have 4 stitches left. We're at the end of our row 3. We should all have 4 stitches left. Now we're going to do another decrease of 3 double crochets. So yarn over, skip that next stitch and into that next, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, which is our last, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, yarn over, pull through 2. Now everyone's first 3 rows are complete. Now from here, it is going to be a 3-row repeat until this comes to a point. Now, just as a really quick tip, the 3 rows in our 3-row repeat are going to be the same as these 2. So the first row in our 4-row repeat won't have any increases or decreases. The second row in our 3-row repeat will have a decrease along the beginning and the end of the row. And the third row in our 3rd row repeat may start with a decrease or it may end with a decrease, kind of like how we just did together. Now the 3rd row's decrease can start or end on a decrease because it's an odd number of rows. So we're just going to get started on the following 2 rows together, and then I'm going to show you how to get started on your 3rd row in our 3-row repeat that starts with a decrease. So to get started on the following row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and make our way down with our non-decrease row. So as a refresher, into that first stitch with a single and a double, and continue this, making sure that we close off the row when we have 2 stitches left, just with 1 half double crochet. Now the first row in our 3-row repeat is complete. We're going to get started on the following row, which is a decrease row that starts and ends with a decrease. So chain 2 and flip. Now to start our decrease row, it's always going to be 2 decrease of 2 half doubles. So yarn over into that first stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, then a second decrease, yarn over into that next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through 4. Then our Suzette stitches all the way down till we have 4 stitches left. Now starting with that next stitch from our previous row with a single and a double, skip a stitch, next single and a double, and I'll meet you back when we have 4 stitches left. We've made our way down with our row 5, leaving the last 4 stitches. Now to close it off with our decrease again, yarn over, skip that next stitch into that next, pull through, next stitch, pull through, next stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 4, yarn over, pull through 2. Now our second row in our 3rd row repeat is complete. Now from here we're going to do the 3rd row in our 3rd row repeat, but since we're getting started on this side, which is the outside of our cup, and we know that because our stitch marker is here, we're going to start it with a decrease. So chain 2 and flip. So just like the previous row that started with a decrease, insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through 4. Into that following stitch, insert, pull through, next stitch, pull through 4. Into that following stitch with our Suzette stitch set, so a single and a double. Then continue on with our normal Suzette stitch sets, making sure we close off the row with 1 half double crochet into that last stitch. We are back. Our first 6 rows are complete. Now from here, all we're going to do is continue to repeat these 6 rows until our work comes all the way up to a point with our last stitch ending with just 1. Once we have that, do a chain up a 1 and cut, and I'll meet you back. We are back, and I have just completed my cups. Now I have a total of 12 rows, and my height is roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters, and once when I did a chain up a 1 and cut, I went ahead and made 1 more identical panel. Now from here, we're going to single crochet along the outer edges. So as you guys can see, the 2 cups that we have along the stitch marker end, that slant is a little bit more drastic than the ones along the inside. Those are going to be the outer edges. So taking a look at one of our cups, we're going to insert our hook into our bottom corner stitch and single crochet all the way up until we reach the point. Now we've inserted our hook into our bottom stitch marker side corner stitch. I did take out my stitch marker. Now all we're going to do from here is put 2 single crochets into every side row until we reach the point. So all we're going to do is pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then into our first side row, which this is mine right here, I'm going to find that top loop and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 into that same top loop with a second. This is my following side row, so insert your hook in through that top loop with 2 single crochets. There's 1, there's 2. Again, into our following side row, this is mine right here, insert with 2. So there is 1, and then there's 2. We're going to continue to put 2 single crochets into every side row until we make our way all the way up to the corner point, and then I'll meet you back to get started on the other side. So we've just made our way up with our single crochet row. We did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now we're going to repeat everything on the other side, but instead of starting at the bottom corner stitch, we're going to start it at the top corner stitch because we want the front of the single crochet rows to show. So into the top corner stitch, and making sure that we're working down the stitch marker side, 2 single crochets into every side row. We should end up having the same amount of stitches on both sides. Then I'll meet you guys back to get started on the rest. So we are back. We have just completed the single crochet rows on top of our cups, and now we're going to get started on the strap detail that connects to the neckline. So this following section is going to start off the same way for everyone, no matter what size we're making. So we're going to set our cups aside for now and get started on the beginning of the strap. So getting started on our strap, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn, make a slip knot, then our same 5mm hook, and we're all going to start with a chain 1. Now, this is going to be the same for everyone, so right after we have our chain 1, we're going to block off that chain, and then chain 2. What we're going to do is slip stitch into the second chain from our hook. So we're going to insert, yarn over, gently pull through everything on our hook. We want to make sure that we're not tugging too tightly, otherwise the following row can be too tight to work into. And then we have 1 more chain, so insert into that next stitch with a slip stitch. Now our row 1 is complete. So let's get started on row 2. We're all going to chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So there's 1, and then there's 2. Now to get started on any odd number row, we're going to chain 2 and flip our work. And we're all going to start by slip stitching into that second chain from our hook. So into that second chain's back loop, insert with a slip stitch, into that second with a slip stitch, and then into that next stitch with a slip stitch. And since we're all working on our row 3, we all should have ended with 3 stitches. Now I do want to make sure that we're inserting our stitch marker into the edge of this row just to help us keep track of how many rows we're doing, because the more rows you do, it could be a little hard. And now that our stitch marker is into place and we all have a total of 3 rows, let's just do the following 2 rows because it's going to be a 2-row repeat. So to get started on any even number row, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So we should have the same amount of stitches as our previous row. Now our even number row is complete. To get started on any odd number row, chain 2. There's 1, there's 2, flip our work. Into that second chain from our hook, insert with that back loop, then continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and for every odd number row, we should have 1 more stitch than our previous row. All we're going to do from here is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we now have a portion that can reach from mid-chest, making sure that this point is at mid-chest, right at the base of our neck, and we're going to stretch this until this can reach the top corner stitch of our cup. So when we're placing this cup up to ourselves, we want to make sure that this first row stays at our underbust, so roughly where an underwire would be, and we're just going to lay it down the way it would lay, as if it were completed. Then, like I said, continue on with our 2 previous rows until our 2 previous rows can reach from the middle of the base of our neck over to the top corner point of our cup. Then I will meet everyone back right after an even number row so we can work straight into the edge of the cup. We are back, and the first half of my strap is complete. I have a total of 18 rows. This length is roughly 3 inches or 8 centimeters unstretched, because keeping in mind it does have a decent amount of stretch to it. Now we're going to connect it into the cup. So how that's going to work is, since we all should have ended right after an even number row, which is the edge with the slant, we're going to slip stitch it into that top corner stitch of our cup. So into this top corner stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, and pull through everything on my hook to connect. And now that we have that, we're going to work our way down. So slip stitching into that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert with another slip stitch. All the slip stitches into the base don't actually count as a stitch. Then we're going to flip our work to work our way back down our strap. And from here, we are still going to be doing our increases. So whenever we are starting along the base, working our way out, we're all going to do an increase of 2 single crochets. Now we're doing our increases with single crochets instead of slip stitches just because it's a little bit easier to see. It basically looks the same anyways. So into that first stitch from our previous row, not working into any of those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert with 2 back loop single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2. Then from here, 1 back loop slip stitch into the rest of our stitches. And now that we've made our way all the way down to the outer edge, we're going to chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and I'll meet you back along the base. So we've made our way all the way back down. Now we're going to connect it into the base. So just into that next available stitch, insert with a slip stitch. Doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. And since we're here, might as well get started on the following row. Slip stitch into that next stitch into the base. Flip our work and start this row off with an increase of 2 back loop singles. So into that last stitch from our previous row, there's 1. Same stitch with a second, then 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. From here, we're just going to continue to repeat these 2 previous rows until we make our way all the way down our cup and we don't have any more rows left to work into. When we have that, I will meet you guys back. We are back with the strap. We have just completed connecting it into the cup because we made our way all the way down and did a chain up a 1 and cut right after our last row. Once we have 1 completed, we're going to repeat the same thing on the other side. Then once we have both of them completed, we're going to get started on the back panel. But before that, we do want to make sure that we are tying the 2 points of our cups together. So all we're going to do is just take a small strand, tie them together using a really tight knot, and then we can get started on the back panel. So now that we've tied our 2 cups together, we're going to get started on our back panel. That's going to be pretty simple. It's just going to be a solid slip stitch chunk. So what we're going to do is make a chain for the same amount of stitches that we have for our last slip stitch row when it came to doing our strap. Now, for those of you that have my numbers, I ended with a total of 22 stitches here. So I'm going to start for my back panel, making a chain 22. And I actually already have my back panel completed, so I'm just going to do a small sample size with you. Once we have our chain, all we're going to do is block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Into that chain that we blocked off for the second chain from our hook, we're all going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert and gently yarn over, pull through everything, and from here just continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain. Now that we're at the end of our row 1, we're all going to get started on row 2, which is going to be a back loop slip stitch row. So from here, simply chain 1, flip our work, and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, and that's it. From here, continue to repeat our back loop slip stitch row with no increases and no decreases until we now have a portion that can stretch from mid underarm across our back to mid underarm on the other side. Once we have that panel completed, I'll meet you back to seam everything together. So we are back. My back panel width is complete. Now I have a total of 75 rows. My width is roughly 10.5 inches or 26 centimeters, and that is unstretched. Now what we're going to do from here is seam it up to the front panel. So we're all going to start by placing our front panel on top of our back panel. We are then going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch of both the front and the back panel. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through everything, and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Then we're all going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam to make it look like another slip stitch row. So finding that first stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back panel, insert only into that back loop, then yarn over, pull through all 3. Let's do that again. Next stitch into the front panel, insert only into that front loop. Next stitch into the back, insert only into that back, then yarn over, pull through everything, and continue doing this until we don't have any more stitches left. When we don't, do a chain up 1 and cut and repeat on the other side. Alright, so we are back. Now that everything is all seamed up, the next thing we're going to get started on is our neckline. So first things first, we're all going to make sure that our work is flipped right side up, meaning all of the seams that we just did are now along the outside. Then we're going to insert our hook into the top corner stitch of our strap and start by making a chain that can wrap around our head. Now just to get this measurement correct, just make a chain that can wrap around our head, and then once we have the chain, I'll meet you guys back so that we can connect it into this side. Now I went ahead and already measured mine out. I needed roughly 17 inches or 43 centimeters. So from here, I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook and make a chain of 70. Now that we have our chain, we're then going to single crochet it into the top corner stitch of this strap. Now that is going to count as our connection and as a stitch. So insert with just 1 single crochet. And as a quick tip, make sure that your chain isn't twisted. We should have an additional stitch here, so insert into that next stitch with another single crochet. Then from here, we're all going to chain 1 and single crochet into the next corner stitch on the other strap. And once when we have that single crochet, we're going to slip stitch into that first chain that we made, chain 1, and for our next row, we're just going to put 1 single crochet into every chain, making our way all the way around. Then once we made our way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space and do a chain of 1 and cut. But just as a really quick tip, this single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch. So once when it's completed, try your piece on. If it's a little bit too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip. We are back. We have just completed our single crochet row and slip stitched into that chain space and did a chain of 1 and cut. Now from here, we're going to get started on the height of our neckline. And what we're going to want to do is flip our work over to look at the back of that single crochet row that we just did. And insert our hook into any one of the stitches. It doesn't matter, we just want it within the back so that the seam can be within the back. We do want to also make sure that we're inserting our hook into the top of that single crochet row and not within the chain that we made. From here, go ahead and insert your yarn onto your hook, pull through, and start by making a chain the height that we'd like for our collar to be. I'd like for mine to be just about an inch or 2 centimeters, so I'm going to start by making chain 6. And since we already know how to do our slip stitches, block off that last chain and do a chain 1 into that chain that we blocked off with a slip stitch and put 1 slip stitch into every chain, remembering not to tug too tightly. Now that we've put 1 slip stitch into every chain, we're going to connect it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch, insert into that next stitch with a slip stitch. Now that stitch doesn't count as a stitch, that's just to connect. Then to work our way up to the following row, slip stitch into that next stitch into the base, flip our work and put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So this is basically going to be the way that we connected the strap into the body, but now without any increases or decreases. So just to get the following row started, into that last stitch from our previous row, insert into that back loop, and that's it. From here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work. Put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, connect it into the base the same way that we just did, and the same way that we did for the strap into the cup, and make your way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all up. So we are back. We have just completed making our way all the way around with our slip stitch rows. Now we're going to seam it together, but the seam is going to be done exactly the same way as our side seam, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. We're all going to make sure the work is slipped right side out, right side up, then do our same outside loop slip stitch seam that we did for the body. Then from here, we can clean up the inside of our panel. So first things first, we're going to make sure the work is still flipped right side out, right side up, and we're going to insert our hook into that chain space that we made in between our 2 straps. So what we're going to do is just put 1 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way around. So working into the strap, we're all going to find our first side row. This is mine right here. I'm going to find that top loop and single crochet. This raised row is my following row, so find that top loop and single crochet into there as well. Let's do this once more. This divot is my following side row, so find that top loop and insert with a single. This raised row is my following side row, so insert with another single. Make your way down and I'll meet you back when we're at our cups. So we've just made our way down our strap with our single crochets. Now into the cups, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row, but we should all have just 1 available stitch at the top of our cup right here. So find that stitch first and start with just 1 single crochet. And now 1 single into every side row. So this is my first side row, find that top loop, insert with 1. This is my following top loop, insert with another. Then 1 single crochet into every side row, making our way all the way back up, slip stitch into that chain space, do a chain of 1 and cut, and I'll meet you back. So our single crochet row along the cutout within the front is complete. Now we're going to do our bottom band. So first things first, making sure the work is still flipped right side out, right side up, we're going to insert our hook into any one of the side rows that we have within the back, and we're going to do our single crochets. So working into any of the side rows, so basically just into the back panel, we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every other side row. So inserting our yarn onto our hook, we're going to pull through and do a chain up of 1 to secure. Now this divot is my first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop and start with just 1 single crochet. We're going to be skipping over our following side row and into that next side row, which is this divot for me, insert with another single crochet, and that's it. We're going to continue doing this, making our way all the way across our back panel. Then once we reach our front panel, we just have the bottom of the cups to work into, which are just stitches. Put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and when you make your way all the way around, slip stitch into that chain space. This single crochet row is going to be as wide as this portion can stretch, so once when it's completed, try your piece on. If it's too tight, reduce some stitches with a looser grip, or if it's too loose, reduce some stitches with a tighter grip, and I'll meet you back. So now that our single crochet row is complete, the next thing we're going to do is our bottom band, which is going to be done exactly the same way as our neckline, so I'm just going to talk you guys through it. Now that everything is fitting nicely and we've slip stitched into that chain space, we're all going to make a chain the length that we'd like for the bottom band to be. I'd like for mine to be just about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. So I'm going to start by making a chain 10. Then just do my back loop slip stitch rows with no increases, no decreases, making my way all the way around. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, I'll meet you back so we can seam it all together. We are back. We've made our way all the way around with our bottom band. Now we're going to seam it up together. So first things first, it is going to be the same exact seam that we did for the collar and for the side. So just to talk you guys through it, making sure that our work is flipped right side out, we're going to do our same outside loop slip stitch seam. When we don't have any more stitches left to work into, do a chain up a 1 and cut. Next thing we're going to do is single crochet along the top. So making sure that our work is flipped right side out, we're all going to insert our same hook into the stitch that we have that's nearest to our left strap into the collar. Then simply make our way all the way down the strap and around the back and then all the way back up, putting 1 single crochet into every side row. Once we make our way all the way back up, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base, which is the collar, then do a chain up a 1 and cut. So now that our single crochet row along the top edge is complete, the last thing we're going to do is our back detail. So first things first, we're all going to start by inserting our stitch markers into any of the stitches that we want within the neck and within the top of the back panel where we'd like for the detail to touch. So for those of you that have my numbers, from this outer edge all the way around my neckline, I inserted my stitch marker into the 24th stitch, and I repeated that on the other side. Then from the top of this detail, making my way all the way down to the back, I inserted my stitch marker into the 59th stitch and did the same thing on the other side as well. And now all we're going to do from here is make a chain that reaches from stitch marker to stitch marker. So I went ahead and already measured mine out. I need roughly 6.5 inches or 17 centimeters. So I'm going to make a chain 18. So now that we have our chain, we're going to slip stitch it into that stitch marker stitch. So just making sure that our chain isn't twisted, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. Then we're going to do a single crochet row just to sturdy everything up. Then all we're going to do is slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base, flip our work, and put 1 single crochet into every chain and slip stitch it into that next stitch into the base. Then do a chain up 1 cut and repeat on the other side. We are all done. Last thing I have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it, y'all. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Check us out on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye.